All right, so if you're constantly fighting pests in your garden and feeling like you're losing, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're diving straight into a hidden empire operating right under your nose. We're going to unmask a literal organized crime syndicate in your garden and figure out how to outsmart them without pouring harsh chemicals everywhere.
You know the drill, right? You buy the expensive chemical sprays, coat your plants, the aphids drop, and you think, boom, I won. But then, literally 7 days later, they are back, full force. So why does this endless cycle keep happening? How on earth do these tiny, super slow pests manage to recolonize the highest, freshest leaves so incredibly fast? Well, it turns out we've been looking at the completely wrong enemy.
Which brings us to the ant and aphid alliance, the garden underworld. It's time to unmask the real masterminds pulling the strings here, the ants. They are absolutely not just innocent bystanders. They're actually the architects behind your plant's destruction.
To get why ants and aphids are always hanging out together, we have to look at the currency of this micro-underworld. Ants are actively farming these aphids. Why? To harvest a vital, energy-packed syrup called honeydew. When aphids suck the sap out of your plants, they excrete this highly concentrated sugar water. Now, to an ant, that's not waste. That is a premium, high-octane energy drink that literally fuels their entire colony.
So, the ants act like this ruthless, organized mafia, fiercely guarding their little aphid dairy cows. Think of it like this. The aphids are the cattle, and the ants are the heavily armed ranchers. These ants will aggressively bite and attack anything that comes near their prized aphids, especially natural predators like ladybugs. And get this, when a leaf runs out of sap, the ants will literally pick the aphids up and carry them to fresh, new leaves just to keep that honeydew flowing. That is exactly why they are the ultimate bodyguards.
And the sheer scale of this operation, it is wild. This is a highly organized society. You've got specific ant factions dedicated entirely to aggressive combat, like the Mazzini Guards, which make up 40% of the force. Then you have the Fini faction, specializing in high-speed aphid transport. Listen, if you don't cut off this transportation network, you are never ever going to get rid of those aphids. So how do we stop it? By setting up tape barriers and cutting off their highway. To completely dismantle this crime syndicate without a single drop of pesticide, we're going to execute a precise tactical heist. We have to physically block the ants from reaching the canopy. Time to build a fortress.
We're going to build this physical barrier in 3 simple steps. First, isolate the tree. You've got to cut away any low-hanging branches or tall weeds that are touching the trunk. Second, safely wrap the trunk with a buffer layer. Electrical tape or plastic wrap works great. Finally, apply a thick moat of grease right over that tape. Now, you might be wondering, what kind of grease should you use? You want heavy automotive grease, the stuff commonly known as bearing grease, or you can use specialized rat trap glue. Both work perfectly to create an impassable, sticky moat that those ants just cannot cross.
But there are definitely some critical mistakes to avoid here. Setting up this barrier requires some strict attention to detail. This isn't just a set-it-and-forget-it kind of deal. One tiny error can compromise the whole mission and actually damage your plants. First rule, never ever apply grease directly to the bark. That will literally burn and kill the tree. Always use that buffer tape. And this is absolutely crucial. You must loosen that tape once a year, or else you'll end up strangling the tree as it grows. Also, how do you know when to actually change or update the tape? Well, you need to check your trap weekly. You'll want to replace the tape or add more grease if it loses its stickiness, or if fallen leaves and dust have accidentally created a little bridge for the ants to walk right over. Oh, and double check that no branches are touching a nearby wall or fence, because ants will absolutely use those as a secret back door.
All right, moving on to inviting predators to catch the aphids. Once those bodyguard ants are successfully locked out at the base of the trunk, something truly magical happens up in the canopy. The playing field is finally leveled and nature can step in.
By cutting off that ant protection, the aphids are just left stranded, completely defenseless. So how do we get the good guys to show up and do the heavy lifting? You actively invite the garden's natural police force by planting enticing flowers right nearby. Things like marigolds, daisies, and coriander are absolute magnets for beneficial predators like ladybugs, lacewings, and parasitic wasps. Once they smell that the buffet is open and see there are no ants around to fight them, they move right in.
And it's astonishing. Scientific observations actually show that without their ant protectors, those returning ladybugs and other natural predators can wipe out 90% of an aphid population in just a matter of weeks.
That's 90%. You literally don't have to lift a finger or spray a single chemical. Nature just takes its course.
Now let's talk about insect-killing weapons for the stragglers. While ladybugs do the heavy lifting for the main canopy, you still need a tactical DIY toolkit for direct, safe interventions on those isolated outbreaks, like maybe your indoor plants or a sudden swarm on a sensitive veggie leaf.
For these targeted interventions, everyday items from your kitchen can actually become highly effective biological weapons if you understand the science behind them. Let's break down exactly what to use, which specific pest it targets, and the actual underlying mechanism that makes it work.
Okay, first up, dish soap. If you use dish soap to target aphids directly, always stick to the golden ratio. 1 tablespoon of mild soap per 1 liter of water. The soap's surfactants actually break down the aphid's waterproof waxy coating, causing them to dehydrate and suffocate. But here is the key: only spray when it's cool out, like early morning or late evening. You really want to avoid that harsh midday sun, which could accidentally scorch your wet leaves.
Now what about the ants around the base of the plant? Cornmeal and dried coffee grounds act as incredible Trojan horses. The sweet, roasted smells attract the ants and they eagerly harvest the granules, thinking they just scored a massive feast. But their tiny digestive systems simply can't process these materials. The particles absorb moisture and expand inside them, leading to fatal stomach expansion. It is a brilliantly stealthy, organic way to reduce the ant population from the inside out. Plus, you're actually adding nutrients back into your soil.
And we absolutely can't ignore this clever Reddit trick for indoor plants, the green tape trick. You can easily pick up green sticky tape at most hardware stores or local garden centers. Outdoor traps are usually yellow, right? Well, indoor, aphids are super easily fooled into trapping themselves on green tape because they mistake that bright green color for a fresh, juicy leaf. They land on it expecting a nice meal and end up permanently stuck. Genius.
Ultimately, all of this really comes down to a powerful philosophy. You have to shift your mindset. Stop being a firefighter putting out small fires and start being a wise ecosystem manager. You can't just keep spraying the symptoms every single week. By actually understanding this symbiotic relationship between the ants and the aphids, you stop fighting endless little fires and you step up to actually manage the whole ecosystem.
So, armed with all this new knowledge, what's going to be your first move in managing the micro-ecosystem of your garden tomorrow? Are you going to grab some buffer tape and automotive grease to build that fortress? Or maybe plant some coriander to invite those ladybugs to the buffet? The choice is totally yours. Keep observing, keep learning, and go take back control of your garden.